Hey, what's up everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we're doing the WBA Champions Report, as we are going to look at all WBA titles from 122 all the way to heavyweight, as I continue my bi-monthly report on all 4 governing bodies world championships that make up the undisputed world titles. So before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel up here. So, the WBA, all their belts. We start at 122, where the reigning WBA Unified Champion is Marlon Tapilis of the Philippines. Tapilis got the great news announced a few days ago that the biggest fight of his career is taking place Tuesday, December 26th, in the main event of an ESPN Plus card, where Tapilis is going to challenge for the undisputed Super Bantamweight Championship of the world at 122 pounds when he takes on fellow Unified Champion, undefeated WBC, WBO champ, Naoya Inoue, the Monster, as they will collide in Japan in a big-time showdown to determine undisputed champ. Now, Tapilis is coming in a heavy underdog here, but, you know, he was an underdog against what's his name as well, against MJ. So Tapilis is taking this fight knowing what he has to do, knowing that he's coming in a big underdog, and he's going to be ready to rock, you know? I mean, I really do believe that. He scored the biggest victory of his career, upset to capture the unified title, and now he's getting a crack at undisputed. I personally think he's going to get worked in this fight. I think he's going to get knocked out, but hey, opportunity is what it's all about. So we'll see what happens. Again, that's Tuesday, December 26th on ESPN Plus from Japan. So that fight will be, if you're in the United States, will be taking place very early in the morning. Next up, 126 featherweight. The reigning WBA champion was Leigh Wood, but Leigh Wood has formally vacated his world title. The WBA has not yet announced who exactly is going to fight the #1 contender. Now, as I'm doing this video, that dude's name, the #1 contender, was very hard to pronounce, so I just know there's an undefeated contender fighting for the vacant belt. They haven't announced who he's fighting against yet, but the belt is vacant. Not sure if it's gonna go on the line before the end of the year. We'll see what goes down for the WBA featherweight belt, as Leigh Wood defeated Josh Warrington in their big all UK showdown, stopped them in a comebacker in the 7th round, but now has vacated the belt and made his intentions to move to the 130-pound division. At 130, super featherweight, the reigning champion there is Hector Luis Garcia, who is still supposed to be making a mandatory defense of his belt against #1 contender Lamont Roach Jr., but that fight has yet to be formally announced. I'm not quite sure what's going on with that, but these two guys are gonna collide. They're just trying to find a date. I would think throwing them on one of the 2 pay-per-view Showtime cards that are coming up would make sense, but haven't heard anything about nothing. So I'm hoping that gets announced soon. If they do fight, I think it could go either way, but I'm picking Garcia to win. But I wouldn't rule out Lamont Roach Jr. to pull off the upset. So hopefully we see something soon and it gets announced. 135 lightweight. The reigning undefeated WBA Super Champion and Unified Champion is Devin Haney of the United States. We don't know what Haney's doing next at lightweight. We know he's moving up to 140 on December 9th, challenging for a title there. Chances are Devin Haney, if he wins especially, is going to stay at 140. If that happens, I believe he's going to give up his belt. I believe he's going to give up the world title. you know, the unified world title at lightweight. And then Gervonta Tank Davis, who's the WBA regular champion and still undefeated, will get bumped up to full champion at lightweight. I do believe that's going to happen. I'm not sure it's going to happen before the end of the year. Tank, as the regular champ right now, you know, as said, he's not going to fight the rest of the year, but that he might, he's likely going to come back in the first couple months of the year. I still think it's going to be a rematch with Isaac Cruz, but we'll see what happens, and we'll see if it's for the full belt at 135 or not. 140, junior welterweight. The reigning WBA champion there is Rolly Romero. Romero has been granted a medical exception to not fight for the remainder of the year, but he has been ordered to come back, I believe, by March, and he has to fight former world title, or no, he has to fight O'Hara Davies, the mandatory #1 contender, next. So we know that fight's going to take place, but it's not going to happen before the end of the year. So hopefully by the end of the year, we get an announcement of when that fight, or at least a projected date of when that fight could take place. We'll see by the year-end Champions Report. 147, welterweight. The reigning undefeated WBA and undisputed welterweight champion of the world is Terrence Crawford, and the undefeated WBA regular champion at welterweight is Imantas Stanionis. So Crawford first as the super champion. We don't know what's going to happen next with Crawford. In all likelihood, he's moving up to 154 one way or the other. The big question is he really doing that next or not? We don't know, even though it's leaning that way, because right now Errol Spence has activated the rematch clause, but he wants to fight at 154. We haven't heard if Crawford's for that or against it, or if he wants to fight the rematch at 147. Originally, the contract stated that the winner of the first fight would get to dictate terms on the weight for the second fight. So, a lot of people, myself included, think that Crawford isn't really concerned about fighting Errol Spence at any weight. But we don't know that until the fight actually happens, or until it gets announced. So, haven't heard anything official on that. I'm hoping by the end of the year Champions Report we hear about what's going to go down. Now, if Crawford does give up that belt, then Imantas Stanionis, or whoever the WBA regular champion is, will be upgraded to full champion. And the reason I say whoever the champion is because Stanionis is projected to be fighting Keith One-Time Thurman, the former unified champion himself. He's supposed to be fighting Thurman on December 9th on Showtime pay-per-view. Now, that whole card has not been formally announced because that's supposed to be a co-feature to the Erislandy Lara Danny Garcia WBA middleweight title fight. That's what's supposed to happen there, but we haven't heard anything official on that yet. So I'm waiting for that. I hope that's the case. I hope Stanionis and Thurman are fighting. That's a big fight right there. If they do, I am actually going to pick Stanionis to beat Thurman. Although I do think it's close to 50-50 because they both have been out of action almost the same amount of time. Thurman hasn't fought since February of 2022, and Stanionis hasn't fought since April of 2022. So just a couple months apart, but they've both been inactive since then. So we'll see what happens. I do believe that fight's going to take place, and as I said, I'm picking Stanionis to beat Thurman, and then if Crawford vacates the welterweight title, his version, the super championship, then Stanionis or Thurman will be upgraded to full champion. So a lot of moving pieces before the end of the year. 154, super welterweight. The reigning WBA and unified champion is Jermell Charlo of the United States. Charlo just moved up to super middleweight and lost to Canelo Alvarez as he challenged for the undisputed title there. He stated that he wants to move back down to 154, and he wants Zoo and Crawford at 154. I think either of those guys are options for Charlo. I really do. I think he could fight either one of them. right now, it's unclear, though, what exactly he's going to do. I personally feel Charlo's going to fight Tim Tszyu for undisputed, especially since the IBF has ordered him to make a mandatory defense against their #1 contender, who's a virtual unknown kind of deal. In terms of the boxing public, I think Charlo wants big fights. So I think he might fight, what's his name first, you know, and then maybe Crawford would move up to 154 and fight Spence or something like that to set up a major fight after that. But we got to wait and see, and I'm hoping by the end of the year Champions Report, Charlo has made a decision on what he is going to do, so we can see the WBA and any other belts that Charlo holds go on the line, because he has not fought for or defended those belts since May of 2022. 160 middleweight. Erislandy Lara is the reigning champion there, and the projection for Lara is that he will be returning December 9th on Showtime pay-per-view to defend his title finally against former 2-division world champion Danny Garcia at a catchweight fight of 155 pounds, as Danny has only fought one time at 154, defeating Jose Benavidez Jr. last year, and moving all the way up to 160 is a big jump. So Lara, who is a career 154-pounder, only his last few fights have taken place at middleweight, would move down to defend the title at the catchweight of 155 against Danny Garcia. That fight has not been formally announced, though. It's not official yet. So because it's not official, I'm making the, you know, I do believe the fight's going to happen. And to be honest, I think Lara's going to beat Danny Garcia. I think he'll either outbox him and score a decision, or he'll get a late stoppage because he's the bigger man, and I think he'll be able to break down Danny. But you never know. We'll see what happens. But that fight's supposed to take place December 9th on Showtime pay-per-view as the main event. So we'll see. 168, super middleweight. The reigning WBA and undisputed super middleweight champion of the world is Canelo Alvarez. The WBA regular champion is the undefeated David Morrell Jr. Now for Canelo, he returned on September 30th and defended his undisputed title against then undisputed super welterweight champ from 154, Jermell Charlo. He dominated Charlo over 12 rounds, one-sided, unanimous decision, scored a knockdown as well, and retained his belts. Next on the radar for the face of boxing is, right now, the rumor is that Canelo could be fighting Jaime Munguia, the former 154-pound champion, next in May, to set up a big showdown with the winner of David Benavidez and Demetrius Andrade as they collide for the WBC interim super middleweight title on November 25th on Showtime pay-per-view. I don't personally like a fight with Munguia for Canelo, but considering he was factoring in fighting Jermall Charlo instead, I don't mind Munguia as much. And if he's going to fight the winner of Benavidez and Andrade in September for sure, he's going to need a softer touch in May to set that fight up. And I think it makes sense because maybe he could get the winner of that fight to fight on the undercard. So we'll see. But I like the fight. You know, I like, as long as he fights that winner of that fight in September, then I don't care who he fights in May, to be honest. We'll see if it gets officially announced before the end of the year, though. 175 light heavyweight. The reigning and undefeated longtime champion there is Dmitry Bivol of Russia. But actually, let me go back to David Morrell Jr. I'm sorry, I didn't announce the regular champ at 168. David Morrell is going to be the regular champion, and there's going to be a regular belt for as long as Canelo is the face of boxing and the undisputed champion. That's just how it's going to work at 168. None of those governing bodies are going to force Canelo to consolidate or fight Morrell unless he wants to. Well, Morrell, you know, has had some bad news. He was supposed to fight Benavidez. That didn't happen. And now he's waiting around again. I personally feel Morrell should fight Vladimir Shishkin. But whatever he does, I'm hoping he returns before the end of the year to make an optional defense against whoever and stay busy, because Morrell needs to stay busy so he can stay hot on the tracks of Canelo and whoever else in the 168-pound division. So hopefully we hear an announcement or he fights before the end of the year. Now back to Dimitri Bivol at 175 light heavyweight. Bivol has had a struggle of a year. Right now, there's still talks of him possibly fighting in December, but we haven't heard of a name yet, and he hasn't fought all year. So I'm really hoping in November we hear that he's going to fight in December and defend his belt. But right now, it doesn't look promising. We'll see what happens, but I'm hoping we get some kind of announcement out of Dimitri Bivol that he's going to fight somebody. 200 cruiserweight, the reigning champion there, the reigning WBA champion at cruiserweight is Arsen Goulamirian. Now, Goulamirian was just ordered by the WBA to defend his title against former two-time champion Yunier Dorticos. I love this. Dorticos was the #1 contender. I was worried that the WBA would not order Goulamirian to fight him. Goulamirian is going to fight Dorticos now. So we don't know, though, if that's going to happen before the end of the year. I really hope it does, but as long as the fight gets announced, because Goulamirian's solid and I want him to stay busy, and he's only fought one time, or actually since 2019, he has only fought twice since 2019. He fought in December of 2019 and retained his belt, and then he fought last year and retained his title again. I am excited for him to fight Dorticos. I hope it happens for the end of the year. If he does, I think it's a 50-50 fight that can go either way, but I'm naturally going to pick Dorticos because his big-time punch. But Goulamirian is solid, and we'll see. So that's what's happening there. And then heavyweight. The reigning WBA and undefeated unified champion is Alexander Usyk. Usyk holds the WBC and IBF belts as well. We know that Usyk and Fury is going to happen for Undisputed next. Yesterday, I just read that that fight is getting put off, though, until February because Fury ended up having a much tougher than expected showdown with Francis Ngannou in their non-title fight on October 28th last weekend. But this fight is going to happen in February in Saudi Arabia for the Undisputed title. So very excited, very happy to hear that. Can't wait to see that bout. We'll get an official date by the next Champions Report, and you guys can be prepared for that. Gonna be fun. So that's it. That's my WBA Champions Report on all titles in the World Boxing Association from 122 all the way to heavyweight. We still have, I believe it's 4 regular belts. I think it's 3 or 4. Actually, it's 3. I believe by the end of the year, we're only going to have, I think we're going to have 2 left. At lightweight and then at super middleweight. Now, we could not, there's a good chance we only have 1 left at super middleweight. So the WBA has, in the past 2 calendar years, consolidated all their belts down to only a couple left. Gervonta Tank Davis has been awarded that without having to make not being ordered to make to fight for the mandatory against Devin Haney, because the WBA likes Tank Davis. He's a big-time name. They like him. They want to keep a belt on him at all costs, so they're not going to order him to fight somebody he doesn't want to fight. And he doesn't want to fight Devin Haney. And then welterweight, kind of been the same thing because Errol Spence was the man. Now it's Terrence Crawford. The WBA will allow Crawford to do whatever he wants and have a regular champion, Stanionis, until Crawford decides to vacate or fight Stanionis. And then David Morrell at super middleweight. As I said, as long as Canelo Alvarez is the undisputed super middleweight champion, they are not going to order a mandatory bout between, a consolidation bout between Morrell and Canelo, because Canelo doesn't need to fight Morrell. There's no point. Morrell hasn't beaten anybody to earn the Canelo fight. So that's where it's at with the regular titles. So that's it. That's what I got. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.